I want to, first of all, express my gratitude to the museum for selecting me to tell the stories of this exhibit and to talk about the people. One of the things I realized when we started talking about Colorado's Black history was we had a lot about Denver. We have History Colorado. We have plenty of museums in Denver. We have 5 Points. But we did not have much about Boulder. And when people began to ask me about it, in my 46 years that I've spent here, I ask a lot of questions about what was it like to be Black in Boulder, and what was it like to be growing up in Boulder, and what was it like to be at CU Boulder as a student. And I am amazed at the stories that were being told here. I'm amazed at the people that I knew here. Dr. and Mrs. Nylon, they were living legends, literally, in this town. They welcomed the community. And so many other people. Reverend Van was my pastor from 1980 when we first moved here. But just to get to tell these stories has been a privilege of a lifetime. And I myself have grown and learned so much. We have a cemetery here in Boulder that is a historic cemetery, Columbia Cemetery, that I found out has the bones of 151 Black people. That just moves me to know that these people were here, born here some, raised their families here, worked here, contributed to this bustling Boulder County community, and died here. There's one Civil War veteran there. There's one Buffalo soldier there. So just for me to know that is absolutely amazing. I love history. I have lots of stories to tell you about history, which is funny. I told this story on CPR. I got an F in history at CU, at Memphis State University as a student there. And it was a very racist selection. The professor, it was kind of an auditorium class, of 55 students, and 2 Black students, me and Willie Johnson. And the professor said, I don't know why he chose to pick us out that day, but he went on a rant and he said, you people are probably the biggest and brightest in your schools, all Black schools. But I can just tell you this, the most you can ever make in my class is a C. Why? Because any colored person in the world that I know, or that whether I know them or not, I think this can only be average. Aside from wishing that the floor would open up and swallow me up in it, I just sat there and I thought, wow. So imagine a 19-year-old junior sitting there and looking around you and not seeing anyone who looks like you and thinking, he doesn't think I'm good enough. But you know what? I know my value. I know who I am. I know my worth. And I have made A plus A plus A plus A in history, because it's knowing your history and knowing where you came from that allows you to be who God created you to be. And for that, I'm blessed. And I say thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to just share with you about proclaiming Colorado's Black history from the 1840s to today. So welcome to Colorado's Black History exhibit. I want to talk to you about our very first Black person that was born in Colorado. Her name is Annabelle Riley. Annabelle was born in the 1860s, and her parents moved from back east to Colorado. Everybody was looking for gold, of course, and so they came on their way to California and on their way to find gold, but they landed here in Colorado. And so Annabelle is known as the first black child born in Colorado. We don't have a picture of her, and so we have to use a silhouette of her. The beautiful kente cloth that's displayed around her represents the mountains of Colorado, the beautiful mountains of Colorado, and so on. And so we thank God that we have Annabelle welcoming us to this exhibit. And so, I said this exhibit begins in 1840 and extends now, so we have colorful Colorado as the Spaniards and others, Native Americans, came into colorful Colorado before it was even named. It was the Missouri Territory and the Jefferson Territory at that time. Now, the Spaniards, along with one of their princes, his name was Esteban or Estevanico, and he was of Moroccan descent. He too was enslaved, but he spent several years with all of the Native Americans and the Spaniards, and they built community. And so Estevanico died in 1539 during a conflict with the Zuni tribe of Arizona. So we are really, really exploring Colorado when we talk about James Beckwourth. So James Beckwourth was our first fur trader. Many of you may have heard of James Beckwourth. He did all of his work up in the mountains as he integrated with the Native American tribesmen. And he became a rancher and a soldier and a surveyor. And he became one of the largest fur traders in the mountains, where he was trading the furs of exotic animals like the beavers and the bisons. And so he gave his life up there. There are trails right now named for James Beckwourth. Over here on the right, I want to just point out, I won't talk about it right now, but Second Baptist Church of Boulder was one of the prominent churches that were built by the men of the church. It's the only black church between Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Denver, Colorado. It was organized on January 7th, 1908. When we get inside the church, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But these are the people who built this church in 1946 and paid for it at that time. Some of these people here are now in their 80s. Some of them are no longer with us, but that's the history of the church. And I happen to be the second woman. The first woman was one of these little girls in here who was the pastor, and I'm the second woman in our 117-year history. One of the key phrases of this exhibit was called building community. This community represented the black community of Boulder County. And it was also called the Goss Grove neighborhood. It was between 19th and 23rd Streets in Boulder during the 1880 census right here in Boulder. And at that time, it doesn't look anything like it looks today. It was a floodplain, an undesirable area where nobody wanted to come. And also, to add insult to injury almost, the Ku Klux Klan began their rise to power in the 1910s and the 1920s. And it wasn't until the 1930s that they began to leave the area. So I want to mention slavery, because slavery wasn't really, people say there was no slavery in Colorado. Well, that's true, there wasn't. But because I was born in the segregated Jim Crow South, we had Jim Crow laws that a lot of people think Jim Crow was a person. He wasn't. Jim Crow was a system. And it simply said, separate but equal. But anyone who knows anything about the Jim Crow system knows that it was very much separate and very much unequal. So many people left the southern states and left the Jim Crow laws to move to Colorado. And as I said, they were on their way to California for the gold rush, but got here and realized that life offered them a pretty affordable way of living, and they could make a living by doing even subservient things. For instance, there was Clara Brown, one of my heroes. Clara Brown was formerly enslaved in Kansas. She had a family, she had a husband, and she had children. But because of the cruelty of her slaveholder, he sold each of them off, the husband and the children, which left Clara alone. Clara came from Kansas she formerly was a slave, but she was looking for gold as well. Well, of course her heart was broken because her children and her husband were gone. So she moved to Central City. And while in Central City, she set up shop and spent her time going to find her children, looking especially for her oldest daughter. However, just as we normally do, she became a fixture in the business community and became a businesswoman. Usually they called black women who took in laundry and cleaned houses and all. They called them washerwomen. So Clara Brown was a washerwoman. They called her a businesswoman and a philanthropist. And so she made quite a bit of money. Finally found a daughter that she thought was in Denver because she moved there to Denver. Found one daughter living in Iowa. When she died in 1885, the work that she had done in this area in the mountains was so phenomenal that the governor, James Grant, and the Denver mayor attended her funeral and celebrated her, honored her for her philanthropic work that she did. The other thing that was very popular was mining in the mountains. And so Junius Lewis was a pretty prominent miner. He settled in Black Hawk, Breckenridge, Central City, Denver, and Golden in search for silver and gold. And of course he found that. He owned the Golden Chest mine of Sunset near the Boulder Canyon. And he made much money and was quite a successful businessman, quite a major advancement for an escaped slave who worked on a Mississippi plantation for 20 years. One of the things I want to mention are the Black Coloradan accomplishments through 1905. So I want to mention people like Barney Ford, whose picture is in a stained glass window at the House of Representatives down at the state of Colorado Capitol. Julia Greeley was sight impaired or had many sight issues. I don't know if she was 100% blind, but because of the phenomenal work that she did for the community in Greeley, in Gilpin County, and all of Northeast, she is now, as of 2015, nominated as a saint. So she's waiting for her sainthood nomination or sainthood declaration. I'm not sure what that process is. Columbus B. Hill was a famous cook, and Adrian Miller was our curator, and he worked in the Clinton administration as an attorney but found his joy in writing cookbooks and in specializing in cooking. So he adopted Columbus B. Hill, who cooked for the National Western Stock Show and Museum. And the funny thing about that is he cooked one day at the National Western Stock Show for 3,000 people, but 30,000 people showed up for his barbecue. And they were drinking. Need I say more? So there was a food fight, then there was a fight, and Columbus went and found himself under a tree and just propped up against the tree and fell asleep. Dr. Justina Ford, a prominent Coloradan who delivered 7,000 babies but was disallowed to practice in any hospital anywhere in Denver. So she practiced in her home, which is now the Black American West Museum down in Five Points in Denver. In that house, she delivered 7,000 babies. And so that was a big accomplishment for Dr. Justina Ford. And then we had the Old Lincoln Home. The Old Lincoln Home is the one in Pueblo, and all of these things, the ringer washer, the potbelly stove, the icebox, this phonograph, this toy chest, and then this blast furnace donated to the Black History Museum. All these things were from this Old Lincoln Home, 2713 North Grand in Pueblo, Colorado. And so these were donated by Ray Brown, who is the curator of that in Pueblo, Colorado. He's the curator of the museum. He's a reenacted Buffalo Soldier, and he does the Dr. Martin Luther King Holiday Commission down in Pueblo as well. And we'll hear more about him as the exhibit travels to Pueblo. So I want to mention to you, remember I said that there were lynching issues. The Ku Klux Klan began in the early 1900s and they moved to the 1930s. The lynching of Preston Porter is a very sad happening, and it happened in Lyman, Colorado. A white girl was killed. They didn't know who did it, and they pinned it on 15-year-old Preston Porter. He and his father and his uncles and all, the police came, got him, took him to Denver under the guise of keeping him safe, put him in jail, and a mob came and took over the jail. And it was one of the cruelest acts of violence that you could ever see. Not only did they lynch him, but they burned him alive. And so now we are trying to get the ashes from where that all took place on the property. It's been purchased by a white family, but we are not allowed to go on the premises. And the reason we want to do that is because the Equal Justice Initiative by Brian Stevenson, who has the Colorado Lynching Memorial Project in Alabama. We're trying to get the dirt. What he does is collects the dirt and puts them in jars, puts their names on it and all of that. And so he's collecting those at the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. We're trying to get that, but they will not allow us to go on the premises at this time. Trying to get Preston Porter's ashes. So that is, we just want to honor him with the dirt. This is a civil rights or begins the civil rights portion. So we had Henry O. Waggoner. Henry O. Waggoner, along with some other men, joined approximately 130 black men to sign a petition for Colorado statehood. But the men said, we're not going to sign anything until we get the right to vote. And so these men they objected at first, and they told the men, if you let us, if we can vote, we'll sign it. If we can't, we won't. And so Colorado became a state in 1876. Black men, because of their stand and their objections to the statehood, had the right to vote. It says black women did not get that right until 1893. What I learned was that the right to vote nationally was different than the right to vote at the state level, because on the national level, women did not get the right to vote until the 1920s. And then we have here Joseph H. Stewart. He was an immigrant from Barbados. Joseph H. Stewart was a lawyer, and he was the first one to propose the landmark civil rights legislation in 1895. So at the Colorado General Assembly, he proposed House Bill number 175 that protected all citizens in their civil and legal rights, fixing a penalty for violation of the same. What's interesting about that is this is the same, exactly what he wrote in the 1895 is the same legislation that was drafted in the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The 1875 bill was passed unanimously. The 1964 Civil Rights Bill was passed then, and it has practically been gutted to this very day. There's just a couple of more little sentences that will completely annihilate the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Speaking of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, many of you might know that Dr. Martin Luther King was killed on April 4th, 1968. I was a living part of the civil rights movement and was a 19-year-old junior, and this is me. My name is Glenda Strong Robinson. In April 8th, 1968, there was this memorial march down Beale Street. I was also in that last march of Dr. King on March 28th, 1968. That march ended in a riot. Dr. King said, I only conduct nonviolent marches. But the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, was trying to prove that he was not effective with his nonviolent stance. And so when he saw that this ended in a riot, which I was a part of, he said, I'm leaving and I will be back. And when I come back, I will conduct that nonviolent march. He was whisked away to the airport and taken back to Atlanta. One man died that day. I think his name was Larry Payne, young man. And so we said, oh, well, he's coming back. That's the end of that. What we did not know was exactly 7 days later, 1 week later, on the night of April 3rd, 1968, he would return to Memphis. And many of you remember that infamous speech, I've been to the mountaintop, I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. On the very next night, April 4th, standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, he was shot and killed. And we thought that the dream had gone. The dream is now bigger than ever. He wants us to treat each other the way we want to be treated. He wants us to love one another. And until we build that beloved community, our lives will not be the same. So Boulder had two black churches, Allen Chapel AME, or African Methodist Episcopal Church, erected in 1884, and it was at 18th and Canyon, and or 18th and Pearl, right close to the second black Baptist church in Boulder, and that was called Second Baptist Church of Boulder. Erected in January 7th, 1908. And our longest serving pastor this is his robe, Reverend Hansford Van, was the chaplain of the Colorado Buffaloes. So Coach Prime's stuff isn't new. There's always been shoulders to stand on. So Pastor Van was chaplain of the Buffaloes under Coach Bill McCartney and Coach Ricardo Patton. Our current pastor is Reverend James Ray. Adrian Miller, our curator, wanted to highlight in this space all of the black-owned places of worship. The oldest was Zion Baptist Church, built immediately after the Civil War in 1865. And we have diverse faith traditions. There is a mosque called the Masjid Taqwa in Denver, and it was erected, I believe, in 2000 and something. It's still active right now. So Zion, the oldest. The next was shorter, AME Church in 1868. And then we had Payne Chapel AME Church, 1872. That's in Colorado Springs. And then we have Handy Chapel, that was 1892. And I think that it is, as of COVID, I think it's no longer in existence. Then in June of 1906, we have the People's Presbyterian Church in Denver. There are many things that are very moving here in this space. This piano, this communion table, and that pulpit were purchased in 1945 along with that building over there. This video up here, that's a VHS, happens to be our choir singing in 1987. Recorded in Denver, or in, it was at a TV station in, I can't remember right now what the city was, but maybe Highlands Ranch was the city. The Bible belongs to the granddaughter-in-law of one of our members who is now in her 80s. This Bible was given by the Denton family, Grandma Denton, and it is from 1892. And then our prized possession is, I'm the second woman minister in our 117-year history. Their daughter was the first woman minister at Second Baptist. She's now, I'd say 85. But their father was in the Philharmonic, CU Philharmonic Orchestra, and that's a picture of him in the orchestra in 1930. And we are blessed to have his orchestra right here. So that this belongs to the Lingham family, and that's significant because the Linghams were, 4 of the members of the Lingham families were 4 of the 9 founding members of Second Baptist Church Boulder in 1908. This stained glass window was what we found behind the pulpit at the church at 19th and Kenyon. And so this is just a treasure that we have enjoyed there. And so every Sunday, we now have a new facility at 5300 Baseline Road. Every Sunday, We are in, Emily came in here and built exactly a replica of what the sanctuary looks like. And so this is it for Second Baptist Church Boulder. It has been an absolute pleasure for me to have spent the last 2 years talking about the history of Colorado, particularly the history of Boulder County. I have so many stories and so many things that I've learned in this process. I was blessed to do the oral histories and to talk to people. In fact, I think I've done between 35 and 40 oral histories, and 3 of the members have passed on, but I have their records. And so I want to admonish anybody who's living, find the oldest person in your family and sit down and talk with them and find out what your legacy and what your history is. Because I guarantee you this, it's rich and it's illustrious, and it is, you wouldn't believe what you're doing is what they were doing. It's the legacy, it's the shoulders that we're standing on. And so I'm grateful to stand on the shoulders that I've been able to stand on. I'm grateful to the museum for selecting me to get these stories, tell these stories, and grateful for the richness that we have as a people.